P&O admit they broke the law when they fired 800 workers without warning.
I completely hold our hands up. My hands up, our hands up.
Are you in this mess because you don't know what you're doing, or are you just a shameless criminal?
The company boss told MPs he didn't consult the unions before announcing the job cuts because they would have never agreed to them, to the anger of P&O employees.
There's zero remorse, and you could see that by his sheer arrogance.
So, if, as it very much seems, employment laws don't actually protect workers, what's to stop other businesses doing the same? Also tonight, Ukraine hits a Russian naval ship as resistance ramps up and NATO leaders gather and agree to send reinforcements exactly a month after the invasion.
Get it down!
The moment the alleged killer of Sir David Amess is brought down by police, the court's shown body cam footage. Pele knocked them out when they last qualified for a World Cup, but could Wales be in with a shot at Qatar 2022? And
the appalling atrocity of slavery forever stains our history.
A partial apology over the slave trade. Prince William talks of his sorrow, but stops short of saying sorry.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. The boss of P&O Ferries today admitted his company had broken the law by sacking 800 workers without consultation. Peter Hebblethwaite was called to explain himself before MPs after the sudden sackings last week caused widespread anger. But the chief executive insisted it was the only way to save the firm and said he would do the same thing over again. He revealed that new workers would be paid just £5.15 per hour. His annual salary is £325,000 plus 2 bonuses, which he declined to say whether or not he would take this year. And when MPs asked him if he could live below the minimum wage, he didn't answer. Here's our business editor, Joel Hills.
Peter Hebblethwaite, do you have any regrets about sacking staff, sir? The chief executive of P&O came armed with an apology. MPs barely gave him the chance to make it. The company's behaviour has caused outrage. The first question set the tone.
Are you in this mess because you don't know what you're doing, or are you just a shameless criminal?
Before I answer that question, can I start, please, with an apology to the seafarers that were affected on Thursday last week, an apology to their families.
P&O fired almost 800 crew without warning last week and is hiring cheaper agency workers to replace them. The company should have consulted staff and unions in advance, but didn't. MPs wanted to know if P&O had knowingly broken the law.
I completely hold our hands up, my hands up, our hands up, that we did choose not to consult.
That's quite amazing, isn't it? You're coming to this parliament and putting your hands up and saying you willfully chose to break the law. Believe it?
We did not believe that there was any other way to do this, and we are compensating people in full.
Peter Hebblethwaite said the average P&O crew member was earning £36,000 a year before they were sacked and will receive £46,500 in compensation. P&O is paying new agency recruits an average of £5.50 an hour, less than the minimum wage, which we calculate means they'll earn around £11,000 a year if they work full-time. Hebblethwaite told MPs his basic salary is £325,000 a year before bonuses.
Maybe take a pay cut.
In Dover, some of those dismissed by P&O watched Hebblethwaite give evidence. The company insists it would have gone bust had it not taken action to halve its wage bill.
And his crocodile tears apology was absolutely disgusting. There's zero remorse, and you could see that by his sheer arrogance.
P&O wants to get its ferries moving again, but 7 remain stuck in port. In Dover's Western Dock, agency staff have been training to use the emergency evacuation systems. The ships will have to pass safety inspections before they sail again. Peter Hebblethwaite says he knew the decision to fire crews was going to be controversial. MPs asked him if he had any regrets.
I would make this decision again, I'm afraid.
Peter Hebblethwaite left having admitted that P&O broke UK laws, but it's not really clear to what degree the company is bound by them. He told MPs the P&O brand has taken a hit and that some customers have cancelled bookings, but he says the company now has a chance of survival.
Oh, Joel, some extraordinary exchanges, weren't there? Real anger. Interestingly, P&O say they did warn the government about what they were going to do. So could and should the government have actually done more about this?
Well, these are really good questions. There was anger today and there was confusion too. MPs accused the company of thuggery. They accused it of behaving like gangsters. P&O had an obligation to consult its staff before firing them. It didn't do that. Had an obligation to notify the government. It was going to make more than 100 staff redundant. It did do that, but hours before it actually dismissed them. They only learned on the night before, last Wednesday. The government plans to take action against P&O. It's not clear, though, how UK law applies to this situation. P&O employs its staff in Jersey, on Jersey contracts, in Jersey companies, on ships that are registered in the Bahamas and places like Cyprus. It's not clear that the law has jurisdiction. What's curious, though, is that we learned today that neither the Transport Secretary nor the Business Secretary have asked the Attorney General what action the government could take. The Insolvency Service has until the 8th of April to make a legal assessment. The government may decide it will ride into battle, but it may be too late because by next Thursday, P&O crews have to decide whether to take the severance terms or not. They may have signed away their legal right by the time the government decides to act.
Joel Hills, thank you. Let's move on now to the ongoing war in Ukraine now. And NATO is to deploy 40,000 more troops to bolster Eastern Europe. It came after alliance leaders met at an emergency summit in Brussels. UK troops will be among the battle groups and more missiles are being sent to help Ukraine defend itself. And NATO leaders warned President Putin he would face severe consequences if he used chemical weapons. Well, this is the situation on the ground exactly 1 month after Russia invaded around the north, east and south of Ukraine's border. Russian forces are on the defensive. Excuse me, to encircle Mariupol, where there's been fierce Ukrainian resistance. But residents continue to flee. We'll have more on that in a moment. In the occupied port city of Berdyansk, Ukrainian forces claim to have destroyed an enemy ship. As our Europe editor James Mates now reports.
1 month after the war began, at least a week after Russia thought it would have declared victory, and Ukraine scores one of the biggest victories of the war. A Russian naval landing ship hit and destroyed in the occupied harbour of Berdyansk. 2 others that lay alongside damaged and forced to flee.
Good morning, Mr. President.
For NATO leaders at an emergency summit in Brussels today, this is heartening news, as are reports that Ukraine may be pushing the Russians back around Kiev. But if they thought that meant the pressure would be off to send more help, they were quite wrong. In an address to the summit, Ukraine's President Zelensky wants much more, specifically tanks and aircraft. We're asking for tanks, he told them. You have at least 20,000 tanks. Ukraine is asking for 1% of all your tanks. Give them to us or sell them to us. There's no sign that will happen, nor that NATO will confront Russia directly. But 4 new NATO battle groups are now to be sent to reinforce the alliance's southeastern borders, while the UK will send 6,000 more defensive missiles, plus an extra £25 million in aid. Boris Johnson has led the way on military help and for his pains been labelled Russia's enemy number 1 by Moscow. But amongst Western leaders, he at times seemed to cut an isolated figure today. And unlike President Biden, he hasn't been invited to the EU discussion tonight on tightening oil and gas sanctions. Is Europe doing enough? Are the Germans doing enough? What will Britain do to help other countries who rely more on Russian oil and gas to wean themselves off it?
Thanks, James. Look, and I just want to say that this is easier for some countries than it is for others. I think it's heroic, and I applaud what Germany is doing. They've set themselves deadlines to move away from oil and gas. I don't think it'll be easy, and the Italians are doing the same. I don't think it'll be easy for them, but it's the right thing to do in the long term, in the medium term, and we will help, of course.
Within the last hour, President Biden spoke of an alliance that was confounding everyone, not least Moscow, with its united reaction.
Putin was banking on NATO being split. My early conversation with him in December and early January, it was clear to me he didn't think we could sustain this cohesion. NATO has never been more united than it is today.
But while the alliance has been shocked back into relevance and purpose, there remains a determination not to be dragged into this conflict. At least not unless Putin resorts to chemical or nuclear weapons, in which case all bets could be off.
There have been more emotional reunions in the western city of Lviv as people flee towns and cities almost completely destroyed by Russia. Among those arriving in Lviv's main train station are families who've somehow survived the horrors unleashed on Mariupol. Our correspondent Garrett Vincent heard their stories of survival.
In Mariupol, the structures that make up civil society, human society, have been upended. The places where people once lived peacefully, emptied and burned.
City is under continuous bombing. In our estimation, from 50 to 100 bombs they use each day and do airstrikes on our city.
Mariupol's deputy mayor told me that Ukraine's army still holds the city, but can't stop the bombardment.
Russia use warships and they shells from missile to our city, and we do not have anti-warship, anti-missile weapon.
Fleeing the shelling and arriving in the west of Ukraine, families carry their lives and each other in their hands.
As the West ponders further responses to the assault on this country, evidence of a war on civilians pours into this city every day.
Residents of Mariupol fill the platforms here. Shahla introduces me to the loved ones she has brought with her.
How many children do you have?
A son, daughters and grandchildren. Her brother and his family live in the same apartment block, she tells me, but she lost contact with them during the bombardment. My heart is broken, she says. Her daughter Laman kept repeating the same word to me. Genocide. Genocide. She points out the cut just above her son's eye. He was standing in the kitchen when the window came in. They have at least survived, but their existence now is fearful and fragile, and there may be more sorrow yet to come. Garrett Vincent, ITV News, Lviv.
A Russian journalist has been killed by Russian shelling in Kiev. Oksana Baulina had been reporting from Ukraine's capital and the western city of Lviv for the independent Russian website The Insider. She died while filming damage in the city's Podil district. She's one of several journalists killed in the conflict. Here, the Chancellor today defended his mini-budget against claims that it offers little help to the millions facing a cost-of-living crisis. Rishi Sunak did cut fuel duty and he raised the point at which workers start paying national insurance. But one think tank said his overall measures would push 1.3 million people into poverty. And the government's own number crunchers warned the country is facing the biggest drop in living standards since the 1950s. Our political reporter Shihab Khan heard the concerns of people in Nottingham.
Thank you. Good day. Bye.
This is a regular ritual for many, queuing to pick up a food parcel just so that they can get by. As the cost of living crisis grows, more people are struggling and are reliant on services like this one in Nottingham. Sandra, who runs this food bank, says she thinks demand will just keep rising.
They are not getting enough help from the government. Even people that work, they don't get enough each month to be able to pay bills and food and pay heating. Most of them are ashamed of having the need of coming to a food bank.
Many at the food bank were on universal credit, and the Chancellor, who was also in Nottingham today, rejected criticism that his spring statement didn't do enough to help them.
If you're not in work or you are struggling to get by, people will look at this spring statement and wonder what extra help they've got, and they'll be feeling worse off as a result. What would you say to them?
I know things are difficult right now, and I've always been honest with people that it's tough for me to fully protect everyone against the global challenges that we face. But I do believe the tax plan that we announced will make a significant difference to tens of millions of people across our country.
That comes as inflation reaches 6.2%, the highest it's been for 30 years. And there are items going up in price even faster. Pasta has gone up by more than 9%, low-fat milk by 11%, and electricity bills by 23%. But next month, universal credit payments will rise by only 3.1%, leaving many worse off.
The spot will be done in about 5 minutes.
Andy Holhouse is on universal credit and his wife Carol is visually impaired. He says the government and the Chancellor in particular aren't doing enough.
Basically only get what you can afford. Do you have the electric or do you have food? It's not fair. You don't just want to exist. You need to live. And he is allowing us to exist, not live.
After the spring statement, experts warned others may soon be in a similar position, with more than 1 million people potentially falling below the poverty line next year.
We're going to see more families fall into debt. We're going to see more families fall on local welfare support and food banks. We are very disappointed that the Chancellor didn't find the money to come up with a package for benefit recipients. All we wanted was for them to keep their real value through this really tough year ahead.
And if it is as difficult as the predictions say, the calls for the government to act to help those struggling most will only grow louder.
So, Shihab, is there likely to be any extra help for those, as you say, who are really suffering?
Well, the spring statement outlines the government's position for now, and it's unlikely there'll be an immediate change to that. But I was speaking to the Chancellor this morning, and he was keen to stress the fact that those who are struggling most are very high on his priority list. And we understand that several ministers are assessing, and the government in particular is assessing the cost of living situation, and they'll be continuing to monitor it. One thing we do know about this government in particular is that they're not adverse to changing their mind. They do U-turn if they think it's necessary. And we know, having seen the way the Chancellor dealt with the pandemic, that he is also happy to intervene if the situation calls for it. Now, if this cost of living crisis continues to develop in the way that the experts are predicting, we could get to a point where tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of people are really struggling to get by, at which point the pressure on the Chancellor will continue to grow, and those calls to get him to intervene to ensure that those who are struggling, who aren't able to get by, are able to do so, may just grow louder and louder. Whether or not at that point the Chancellor decides to U-turn, we'll have to see. For now, the situation remains, we've got the spring statement, assessments are being done to understand how significant and how impactful this cost of living crisis will be. Time will tell whether or not the Chancellor changes his mind.
OK, Shihab Khan in Nottingham, thank you. Well, there is plenty more still to come in the ITV Evening News, including...
Domestic or hate-related in any way? Pardon? Terror.
The chilling answer given by the alleged killer of Sir David Amess. We will have the latest from his murder trial. A royal salute, but just how long will Jamaica be standing to attention for the British monarchy? And we investigate the worrying world of the Facebook pages where Ukrainian refugees try to find British families.
We've seen children asking for a home, a British man advertising for a Ukrainian wife, all in an unregulated scramble to find a match.
All that and more still to come. Plus, we'll have a first look at that all-important weekend weather after the break. Join me then.
This one's for you, my darling. For all the times I made you wait. For all the times I fought with you and you loved me all the same. You held me tight and told me life could be this way.
Receive a free bracelet from a selection when you spend £99 or more at Pandora this Mother's Day. Offer ends 27th of March.
It's okay to ask. It's okay not to know. After all, it's not our questions that define us. It's what we do with the answers. Because the more we learn,
the closer we get.
When my blonde is luminous, I feel luminous. That's why I choose Preference by L'Oreal.
For luminous colour with long-lasting radiance. Hair colour said to be the best home hair dye I've ever used. Preference by L'Oreal Paris. Have a personalised consultation and discover your preference at l'orealparis.co.uk.
And I'm worth it.
The Harry Corrie Spring event is now on. Put a spring in your step with massive savings and fantastic ideas to transform your home for less. Visit us in store or online at harrycorrie.com. Harry Corrie, the curtain and bedding specialist. The spring event is now on.
Harry Corrie, see what's in store.
It might seem like you're saving big, but if you only check out price comparison sites, have you really got every angle covered? You won't find AXA on price comparison sites, so cover every angle. Don't miss out on car insurance you can count on. Come direct and get a quote today.
Treat yourself to a luxury stay at Bishopsgate Hotel, Derry. Relax, indulge and explore in the heart of the historic walled city. Reconnect with the important things in life. Bed and breakfast rates from £149 per night. Book now at bishopsgatehotelderry.com.
Dylan Turquoise, the new fragrance for her by Versace.
It's not just water. For many people, it's a lifeline. This Lent, please give what you can. Trócaire, until love conquers fear.
Hand-picked? Hand-finished? Hands full? Hands off? Hand-delivered? Handmade?
Handy that.
Need a hand? Hand Mum an extra special bouquet from Asda this Mother's Day. Hand-picked from the heart.
Welcome back. Footage of the dramatic moment. 2 police officers tackled the man suspected of murdering the MP Sir David Amess has been shown to a jury. In the body cam video, PC's Scott James and Ryan Curtis first order Ali Harbi Ali to drop a large carving knife. Then the officers, both of them unarmed, bravely charge him and arrest him. Ali denies murder and preparing acts of terrorism. Here's Rebecca Barry.
They say he's got a knife and he's just stabbed her.
Armed with just their batons and CS spray, 2 police constables, who happen to be nearby, cautiously make their way into the church where an MP has just been stabbed.
Mate, drop the knife! Drop the knife! Get it down! Right, search him.
They eventually get the suspect on the floor between the church pews.
You're under arrest for murder, all right?
As they arrest him, he asks the officers to put his glasses back on.
Cool. Anything you do say, maybe give them evidence. Do you understand me?
He's 26-year-old Ali Harbi Ali. And moments before this photo was taken, he's accused of murdering the MP Sir David Amess. The 69-year-old Conservative backbencher had been meeting constituents in Leigh-on-Sea in Essex.
David Amess.
At the police station, the custody officer asks for details when Ali interrupts with this.
Domestic or hate-related in any
Terror.
way? Pardon?
Terror. I'd say hate, yeah.
On what basis? Racial, religious?
Religious.
The jury was shown the knife that the prosecution say was used to murder Sir David Amess. The 20-centimetre blade inside a plastic transparent case was handed to members of the jury. They then listened as a forensic pathologist described more than 20 stab wounds to the MP's body, including to his heart, lungs and offensive injuries to his hands. In Ali's rucksack there was a Quran and a book called Fortress of the Muslim. When detectives searched his phones and laptops, they found Islamic State propaganda. The court was shown CCTV footage of him repeatedly visiting the Houses of Parliament. Reconnaissance claimed the prosecution for a terrorist attack. Ali Harbi Ali denies murder and a charge of preparing acts of terrorism. His trial continues. Rebecca Barry, ITV News.
Let's have a look at other news now. And 2 Metropolitan Police officers involved in the strip search of a 15-year-old black student have been taken off frontline duties. The girl, known as Child Q, was taken out of an exam after being wrongly suspected of carrying drugs. Now, the officers have now been moved to desk work and will be kept away from operational duty while an independent investigation takes place. A dog which killed a 17-month-old girl in an attack was not a banned breed, police have confirmed. Bella Ray Birch died following the incident at her home in St Helens on Monday. Merseyside police said tests showed the dog was an American Bully XL. And the tram driver involved in a crash that killed 7 people in South London in 2016 is facing prosecution. Transport for London and the tram operator are also facing action from the Railway Watchdog for health and safety failings. Now, Prince William has condemned Britain's role in slavery, calling it an appalling atrocity which forever stains our history. Speaking in Jamaica as part of the Cambridge's royal tour, he also expressed his profound sorrow. But the Duke stopped short of addressing whether his ancestors benefited from the slave trade. From Jamaica, our royal editor Chris Shipp sent this report.
Of all the visits, of all the engagements in the 3 countries of William and Kate's tour this week, the speech Prince William made last night in Kingston was the most significant. A moment to address Britain's role in the trafficking of hundreds of thousands of slaves to these islands.
I strongly agree with my father, who said in Barbados last year that the appalling atrocity of slavery forever stains our history. I want to express my profound sorrow. Slavery was abhorrent, and it should never have happened.
Expressing sorrow, but not saying sorry, and inevitably it left some campaigners feeling shortchanged.
That's a statement of regret. He is not admitting to their role in the chattel enslavement of African, Caribbean people.
This has not been an easy visit to Jamaica. Protests about slavery, but also about becoming a republic and removing the Queen as head of state. It is not often a host Prime Minister effectively tells his guests he no longer wants the Queen to be Queen of Jamaica.
We are moving on as an independent, developed, prosperous country.
Jamaica had the largest number of slaves in the whole of what was the British West Indies. Emancipation Park in Kingston is where they celebrate the moment those 300,000 slaves were freed. A speech is one thing, visitors to the park told us this morning. Action is something else.
It's good to say it, it's good to come out and say it, but following up on, on the words, then you can start in small ways. Start with your circle, start doing things to show that you don't really support that. It's a different time.
Slavery in the Caribbean was driven not through the Queen or the King of England, but through the House of Commons and the House of Lords.
But you do want to cut ties with the British royal family. It's time to cut the tie.
Yeah, man, because we have these wigs and we have to, we have the Westminster system down. Yeah.
The visit to Jamaica wrapped up today with a military parade. There is another realm to visit next, the Bahamas, which might feel very calm compared to what's happened here. Chris Shipp, ITV News, Kingston, Jamaica.
You're watching the ITV Evening News. Here's what's still ahead before Emmerdale. In just a moment, a special report on the delays and the dangers facing Ukrainian refugees trying to get to the UK. But after their own paperwork frustrations, 52 children fleeing the war have finally made it here. Why some women are resorting to the black market to access hormone replacement therapy. In Cardiff, excitement as Wales prepare for their biggest football match in more than 60 years.
In Glasgow, Scotland were meant to be playing Ukraine. Find out what they're doing instead.
And back here, I'll be looking at why, despite scenes like these and temperatures of 20 degrees, we're still seeing overnight frosts.
Well, before that, ITV News has heard from desperate Ukrainian refugees who are being prevented from seeking safety in the UK by paperwork. More than 150,000 British people have signed up to the government's Homes for Ukraine scheme, but that generosity and the desire to help isn't reaching those who need it most. Now, the process of matching refugees with homes is slow and it's very frustrating, and it is making an already pretty hopeless situation even worse, as our UK editor Paul Brand now reports.
Those seeking safety in Britain must find it themselves.
My name is Svetlana. I want to find a sponsor who will help me and my child survive all this horror.
My name is Kirill. I'm staying in Ukraine to defend my country, but I'm looking for a safe place for my lovely family.
Thousands search social media, hoping a virtual match will rescue them from reality.
We're a retired couple in Swansea and can offer one double bedroom and a small single with your own bathroom.
We have a comfortable home in the south of England, surrounded by beautiful countryside.
But we've discovered the help of hosts is being frustrated by a burden of bureaucracy.
Put it in the bedroom for the baby when the baby comes.
In this home, they're preparing for a Ukrainian to start a new life in every sense. Maurice and Freddie are sponsoring a family who are expecting a child.
We've got a spare room which they will have, this room and then the bathroom.
This is the family before the war. And this is Anna Kalita's life now, stuck in a Polish hostel where her second child is due any moment. She fled Ukraine with her mother and daughter.
The baby was in the wrong position and Anna was supposed to have a C-section, and we were afraid the Russians were going to start targeting hospitals. That is why we made decisions so fast. On the second day of war we packed and left.
But they can't get any further under UK rules, which means the newborn needs a visa first.
Anna, how are you feeling about having to have your baby in these circumstances?
I didn't believe it to the last minute. I hoped that I would be able to go back. We thought this nightmare was going to last a week or so. I was packing my bags and planning to have a birth in Lviv, but the war has lingered.
Her sponsor family can do nothing more to help.
How are you feeling?
Just frustrated, heartbroken, angry. I feel like I need to be able to help, but we've got our hands tied. And it's that hands tying that is killing people.
Saving people is the aim of the Homes for Ukraine scheme, but only those who can find their own British sponsor. The government itself will not pair refugee with refuge.
Which means many sponsors are resorting to Facebook pages like this one. A post from a refugee here can attract up to 100 replies. We've seen children asking for a home, a British man advertising for a Ukrainian wife, all in an unregulated scramble to find a match.
There will be some security checks, but once Ukrainians have a sponsor, they face bureaucracy in their bunkers. We've seen photos of refugees having to fill out visa forms in bomb shelters. The government won't tell us till next week how many have been successful.
People that are on the run that are fleeing these war-torn areas are having to upload documents like their passport and things like that, which they just don't have the facilities to do so. So it seems that the government are putting in quite a lot of hurdles.
The government says it's moving as quickly as possible, applying compassion and common sense. But tonight, many sponsors feel they're the only ones showing real heart. Paul Brand, ITV News.
Okay, well now let's get an update on what's making the news tonight. President Biden said tonight that Vladimir Putin had not been banking on such a united response from NATO following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russia said NATO wants the conflict to continue.
NATO has never been more united than it is today. Putin is getting exactly the opposite what he intended to have as a consequence of going into Ukraine. We've built that same unity with the European Union and with the leading democracies of the G7.
Here are courts being shown footage of the dramatic moment 2 police officers tackled the man suspected of murdering MP Sir David Amess. Fans are arriving for Wales' crucial World Cup playoff match this evening. If they make it to the tournament, it'll be their first time since 1958, and we will be there shortly. Well, as I said, that's all coming up shortly. But first, let's return to our Europe editor, James Mates, in Brussels to get the latest from that NATO summit. And James, what is your assessment of President Biden's speech and what's been agreed there today?
Yeah, well, two really interesting developments have come out of what President Biden and the other leaders said. The first is what the response would be if Russia were to use chemical or even tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine. All of them were asked about this. They all said consequences would be very severe, but we will not say what they will be. We are going to maintain strategic ambiguity. There was a lot of criticism from NATO for NATO before this war started, saying, look, these are the things we won't do. We won't confront Russia. We won't put boots on the ground. Allowed Putin to make his own calculations, and that isn't going to happen this time. The other big change is this move of forces eastwards. In the past, NATO's policy in the east has been a tripwire. Put light forces there. They can't stop Russian tanks rolling across, but Russia would know that there was then going to be a war with NATO. Well, now, 4 more NATO battle groups going into the southeast, added to the 4 that are in the Baltics and Poland already. You have 8 battle groups there running from the Baltic in the north to the Black Sea in the south, and a clear policy change that if Russia were to venture into any of these countries, the policy now would be to stop them at the border and fight them where they stood. There would be no question of a tripwire anymore. And when you think that one of Putin's main reasons for going to war was to prevent NATO forces moving eastwards, well, he's provoked precisely the opposite effect.
OK, James Mates in Brussels, thank you. Here, a surge in the number of women wanting hormone replacement therapy is continuing to shortages of the treatment across the UK. In England alone, new figures show that prescriptions for HRT have more than doubled in the past 5 years, and a lack of supply is only adding to the woes of those needing help. Our health editor, Emily Morgan, reports.
Combination between that anxiety and anger.
When the menopause hit 5 years ago, Millie suffered terrible side effects. She spent years trying to find the right hormone replacement therapy. Now she's found it, she can't get hold of it, and the symptoms are back with a vengeance.
The waking up with anxiety, it's like somebody's thumped you in the chest. I can't even explain it. It's just, you kind of just sit bolt upright in bed and you don't know why you've woken up. So I was panicking, I didn't know what to do, and then so I eventually bought 2 bottles online.
Would you normally go online to buy your medication?
No.
Millie's not the only one turning to the black market. Tens of thousands of women are being forced into it because of a shortage of some HRT products. This pharmacy hasn't had any estrogel, one of the most popular gel treatments, for weeks.
They've got to the stage where something's finally working for them and then they can't get it. Is really sad.
And what are you saying to them? Just ring around?
Well, initially ring around. Failing that, going back to your doctor.
We're told it's not a manufacturing problem, but that demand is just so great. In 2015, NICE changed its guidelines on HRT, saying it was effective and recommended it for menopausal symptoms. 2 years later, just over 200,000 prescriptions were issued for the treatment, and by December last year, that had doubled to more than 500,000.
In addition to people being more relaxed about HRT and thinking about considering it, there's also been a shift to what preparations people are choosing to go on. So there has been an increased demand to taking the patch, the gel, the spray preparations and natural progesterone. So that has put more demand on it.
The minister, leading a task force to improve care for menopausal women, says she knows supply needs to increase.
When are you going to talk to manufacturers? When are you going to talk to suppliers? Because women out there at the moment, they're going on the black market.
So what we're doing, we're meeting with them within the next few weeks. We are looking at which...
Is that enough, the next few weeks? Should you not be on the phone to them?
Well, we're looking at the products where there are supply issues. So, the vast majority of HRT products, there isn't a supply issue. And we want to specifically talk to the manufacturers of those products, such as the estrogel gels, where there are some pressures on the system.
There are alternative products women can use, but for most, including Millie, changing medication is simply not an option. Emily Morgan, ITV News.
Scotland's Health Secretary is warning the number of COVID cases in the country could keep rising after hitting another record high. Hamza Youssef says the increase in numbers could continue over the next few weeks. He says the rise has been caused by the dominance of the highly transmissible Omicron BA2 sub-variant. The documents in Prince Harry's legal claim over his police protection in the UK will remain secret, a High Court judge has ruled. The Prince is bringing action against the Home Office over a decision not to provide full security when he visits the country. And the former England striker Jermaine Defoe has announced his retirement from football at the age of 39. He's also known for his friendship with the terminally ill Sunderland fan Bradley Lowry, who died in 2017 from cancer. Now, the fashion retailer Next has warned that it will raise prices by 8% later this year. It's blaming staff shortages as well as disruption caused by the war in Ukraine. And our North of England reporter Sangeeta Lal is outside one of the stores in York. This is a really gloomy outlook, isn't it, for consumers?
It is, because people are already being squeezed by the cost of living, food and energy bills are going up, and now other retail items are too. Now, Next has had to close some of its stores over the past year, but still has more than 470 across the country, and all of them will be upping their prices. So homeware items will jump by 13%. Fashion prices will rise 6.5% in the second half of this year to average an 8% increase overall. Partly, it says, because of the global disruption, because of the war in Ukraine. Next has had to close its websites in Ukraine and Russia, which has had a dent on profit. So too have the rise in shipping and fuel costs. The thing is, though, even with that, the Next company has said that it's seen a better than expected year of sales and is expecting to see £850 million in profit. So you're left wondering, if price rises are already being pushed onto customers of Next, how many other businesses and which ones might have to do the same?
Sangeeta Lal in York, thank you. And now the Wales and Scotland men's football teams are in action tonight in what should have been World Cup playoffs for both sides. Scotland, though, can't play Ukraine as planned, but will instead host Poland in a fundraiser for Ukrainians. Wales face Austria in the knockout tie as they try to qualify for their first World Cup since 1958. Well, Scotland reporter Louise Scott is outside Hampden Park and Beth Fisher is outside Cardiff City Stadium. And first to you, Beth, and excitement running high there, I'm guessing.
Yes, Mary, high expectation, but it's worth remembering that Wales have had their fair share of heartbreak when it comes to qualifying for a World Cup. You actually have to go back 64 years to remember the last time that Wales was at one, and they didn't do too badly, actually. They reached a quarter-final where they played Brazil, and a 17-year-old Pelé scored the only goal of the match to knock out Wales. Since then, though, there's been more heartbreak, there's been missed penalties and handballs, which has meant Wales haven't been at one since. But tonight they play in Austria, who are ranked 10 places below them. And in this stadium behind me, Wales haven't lost a match here for 16 matches. And that's a lot to do with their fans. And I spoke to them earlier about how they were feeling. How are you feeling about tonight?
Nervous. It's going to be good, though. Really good.
Do you think they're going to win?
Yeah, of course we are. Confidence. Gotta keep it up.
How are you feeling?
Absolutely buzzing. So positive for the game.
Gonna win easy. I reckon 2-0.
Yeah, we've got to win tonight. It's going to be close. I think it's going to be tough. I'm hoping for something like 2-1, 3-1. Happy days. On to the next round then. No penalty shootout. We don't want that.
Well, huge excitement here. Excitement, really wondering whether Wales can make the World Cup for the first time in 64 years.
Beth Fisher in Cardiff, thank you for that. And let's go over to Louise Scott at Hampden Park. And Louise, football really bringing people together where you are tonight.
It really is. Tickets for tonight's friendly only went on sale a week ago, and more than 35,000 people are expected to attend here tonight, with £10 from each ticket going to UNICEF's Ukraine appeal. There was one Scotland-Ukraine match a little earlier, though. It was a charity match in a nearby sports centre, organised by the Tartan Army and local Ukraine support groups. The money there going to the Dnipro Children's Charity. Well, tonight's match is due to begin in around 30 minutes' time, and there's certainly a friendly, excited atmosphere. There's many Polish fans have travelled from around Scotland, not expecting to see their team play at Hampden this evening, but of course it's all for a very important cause. And I caught up with some of the fans attending tonight's match a little earlier.
The boys were looking forward to it, and obviously it's for a good cause as well. For the adult tickets, we're promoting for Ukraine. So we said we'll come. The boys wanted to come. They love going to the Scotland games for the atmosphere.
Kind of both of us, I'm Polish and Ross is Scottish, so we kind of thought we'd support both teams and come and see the game. Yep. It's a friendly as well, so hopefully it'll be a good end of the night as well.
It's more important, we want to try to help the Ukraine people as well, and we have to be together, stronger together, you know.
Well, Scotland are due to play their postponed match in June. Tonight, Boris Johnson said he believes Ukraine should get a bye to the World Cup final. Not sure Scotland fans will agree when they're aiming to qualify for the first time since 1998.
OK, Louise Scott in Glasgow, thank you. And we will, of course, have the best of the football on tonight's News at 10 with Raggy, but still to come here, before that, reaching the end at last of their 1,500-mile journey from Ukraine, the 52 child refugees finally in the UK.
And I'll tell you why there's such a difference between daytime and nighttime temperatures at the moment.
We'll do John Lee and Alex for that, and I will make sure he tells us whether this good weather is going to continue into the weekend after this short break.
Imagine, instead of using many appliances over the years, just using one. Because Miele products are designed to last for 20 years, giving you perfect results, year after year. That's quality ahead of its time. Miele, immer besser.
Trees, I won't let you take me down. Alevia Hay Fever Relief lasts for 24 hours, acts within 1 hour, and it doesn't make you drowsy. When hay fever hits, take Alevia before your symptoms take over you. Alevia. Try it now. Alevia, now available in store.
Alien Goddess, the new perfume, Mugler.
Mrs. Brown's Boys, the live show, coming to the SSE Arena in Belfast.
I have friends, but not too many.
Mrs. Brown's Boys.
I have no hair on my face.
Mrs. Brown's Boys, the live show. Tickets on sale this Friday.
Just in time for Mother's Day.
Some say I'm the world's greatest thief. Perhaps I am. Everything I own, I've stolen. But there's one thing I won't steal. Would you steal from the devil?
Concert for Ukraine, live on ITV and ITV Hub. Support and donate Tuesday from 8.
Hello again, welcome back. Now, many of us have been enjoying really warm days this week, but the nights are cold, aren't they, Alex? Why?
They certainly have been, yes. The daytimes have been pleasantly warm, but as Mary said, it's been oh so chilly by night. And take yesterday, for example, we saw rural parts hitting highs of 19, 20 degrees, but at night time, we saw it dip down by more than 20 degrees Celsius to -1, -2 in places. Why? Well, it's called the diurnal temperature range. That's the technical term. and it is fairly common at this time of year. It takes into consideration our daytime maximums versus our nighttime lows, and at this time of year in spring, it is fairly common to get big swings in temperature. As we know, the sun is getting stronger day by day, but rather crucially, the ground is still pretty cool from the winter months. So as the sun begins to set and the moon starts to rise, those temperatures plummet very quickly down to freezing, if not below, particularly on nights when we've got clear skies. And of course, it does catch gardeners out when they want to bring the plants in so they don't get damaged.
OK, and what's going to be happening tomorrow?
Tomorrow, well, it's kind of like rinse and repeat at the moment. High pressure still in control, so there's more sunshine on the way. Let's take a look.
It's a cold and wet outlook, with some heavy downpours throughout the day. Heinz Big Soup sponsors ITV National Weather.
Yes, so our friend high pressure stays with us as we head through the next few days. However, you will notice some subtle changes developing as we get towards the end of the weekend into next week. Perhaps a touch more in the way of cloud cover, but essentially it stays dry, settled, and there is plenty more sunshine to come. As for this evening, well, we are going to see that big drop in temperature. Clear, starry skies overhead, so a patchy frost certainly possible where temperatures get close to freezing, if not below, particularly out towards the southeast there for some rural parts. We could even see a bit of patchy mist and fog like we've seen over the last few nights, but that burns away very quickly as we head into tomorrow. And you can see how tomorrow starts and it stays that way as we head into the afternoon, really. Wall to wall sunshine from the word go. However, into Friday afternoon, you may just notice some fair weather cloud building up here and there. It's not going to spoil the feel of the day, and temperatures are expected to peak at around 19 degrees Celsius, which is still above average for the time of year, but a degree or so cooler than what we saw earlier this week. As for the weekend, well, Saturday it stays very settled. Scotland and Northern Ireland probably seeing more in the way of cloud cover. Still staying bright though, I have to say, but you can see as you come further south into England and Wales, more unbroken sunshine with highs of around 18 degrees Celsius. But as I say, towards the end of the weekend into next week, it will start to feel a little bit cooler.
Heinz Big Soup sponsors ITV National Weather.
Great stuff. Thanks, Alex. Finally tonight, a happy ending for a group of rescued Ukrainian children who have safely arrived in Scotland. Many of them are orphans, and earlier this week we reported how their journey had been delayed several times by paperwork, but now they are here finally, as Mark McQuillan reports.
Smiles on arrival for these Ukrainian children, a step towards a brighter future after an unimaginable ordeal. Fleeing war in their country for a warm welcome and new home in the UK. Their journey here via Poland hasn't been without its challenges.
Oh my God.
It's been cancelled.
Oh my God.
They've cancelled the flight.
Transport and paperwork issues have made the logistics complicated. But after a couple of days of delays, a proud pilot and packed plane set off from Warsaw to London. Some of the 52 children on board, many of them orphans, had never flown before, but the group from Dnipro are now preparing for a new life in Scotland. All thanks to the generosity and perseverance of others.
It's such a relief to be on that plane because for quite a few days it's been touch and go as to whether we would be able to bring them. So excited, the kids, they couldn't believe it when they first saw the plane on the tarmac. I saw their eyes widen and they came on, they sat down, immediately started playing with the screens on the back of the seats. Then they were given all these treats.
The children have what personal possessions they have been able to bring with them. Scotland will now do its best to provide new home comforts and a warm welcome to a group of children who have been through so much in their short lives so far. Mark McQuillan, ITV News.
A more positive story to end with. And that is all from us for now. Emmerdale's next and Raggie's here with news at 10. But from me, all the team here and in Ukraine, of course. Bye-bye.